often think strength is about pushing through, thinking harder, working longer, ignoring the signals. But what if real resilience begins when we stop overriding ourselves? Today's conversation sits right at that age where psychology meets consciousness and where burnout becomes a doorway rather than a breakdown. Welcome to Mind Over Matter, where we explore resilience, inner strength, and the psychology behind real transformation. I'm Shreya, and today I'm joined by Dr. Jonathan Locust, founder of ConsciRise, and a voice at the intersection of science, spirit, and conscious leadership. We're talking about consciousness and spirituality not as abstract ideas, but as lived experiences that can help us recover from burnout, rebuild trust in ourselves, and lead with clarity in a changing world. So, welcome, Dr. Jonathan. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And in addition, thank you for holding spaces and creating spaces where we can have discussions of high vibration.
Yes, this is really an honor for me to have you. And Dr. Jonathan, before we go anywhere conceptual, I'm really curious when you look back at the moment your body and mind said enough, what do you now recognize was trying to get your attention?
Mm, that's a really good question. I think the what was really trying to get my attention was a lesson that I needed to learn. And by way of not necessarily recognizing that lesson, the notifications that there's a lesson that needs to become learned become stronger and stronger. And that's what we find in a lot of times when we go through certain situations, it's because there is a lesson, a learning on the other side of that. And once the question becomes more about what is the answer? What am I supposed to learn? Where's the love in the moment? Those types of questions really kind of help us decide and allow one to be able to better understand the lesson. And it was for me once I switched to not necessarily when I was going through a specific health issue, which was really kind of an igniter of what started me on my journey as I started really thinking about it and moving from a perspective of why this happened to me, woe is me, to a point of understanding that I can heal myself, I will heal myself, and I just need the faith and the momentum to be able to do it. But the thing that I know that I needed to heal myself was to understand the lesson that I needed to learn behind my health issue in the first place. So I think a lot of it really revolves around the lesson that we need to learn that's connected to particular situations.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that idea that burnout is not failure but a feedback already reframes so much of how we think about resilience. And also, there is a belief that consciousness and spirituality sit outside of science or even opposite. From your background in behavioral analysis and psychometrics, what do you think we get wrong about that divide?
Mm, That's I would say that there is a greater connection between the science and even things. So I'll talk about it even from a perspective of, even there's you look at some of the things that are coming out in quantum physics, quantum mechanics. It's starting to give, I think, some perspective of metaphysics but there's science behind that, right? Electrons and things like that. And um, so there's things that are actually uh that scientists are finding consciousness in ways in which that is measured, how it grows. There is science behind there. And then when you look at on the area of the behavioral aspect and psychometrics, one of the things that I found is, and this would, I would say, correlate
Mm.
to this is actually this is a really good question, and I think this is really good parallel. So one of the things that in the research we do, we predict things. So we'll predict jury outcomes. For law firms, we can create we'll can predict political outcomes, and a lot of it is based on certain makeups of people, what their beliefs are. Well, I would say as time and time has went on, what we have found is, and there's more and more of these people that, let's say, instead of me actually surveying 100 people, I could basically find one person that could give me the insight of those 100 people.
Hmm.
And there's more of that is happening now. So that's one parallel of kind of what I'm seeing in regards to someone who's doing the research. But you look at things that are happening when it comes to what Carl Jung, Jung, what he talks about in regards to the collective consciousness, right? And the collective consciousness of a shared consciousness, kind of a shared mind, a shared perspective. And when you look at what's happening, I believe that runs parallel to what I'm seeing in regards to research, a particular person being able to give exactly what multiple people would say, and then as well as the collective consciousness. And then you even look at even certain podcasts that are exploring the communication styles between nonverbal and autistic children. And they find that they communicate telepathically, and there's no bounds to their communication, and all the different research that has come from there. And the last thing I would say is there's there are certain areas, like I think about at the University of Virginia, their School of Medicine have a program of perpetual studies, and they've already proven reincarnation. And the way they've proven it is by looking at the research. One of the ways, so they did it in a number of different ways, but one of the ways that really started their research is birthmarks, and seeing why certain children have certain birthmarks, and parents will report. So this will be the parents that will be coming to the researcher saying that their children are talking about their birthmarks, how they got them, the experiences tied to their birthmarks. And they're only 4 or 5 years old, but they're talked about possibly being either shot or stabbed, all these burned, or all these different experiences that they had from a birthmark. So all of these different things, I think when you start to look at the wide range of research and what's been done in the different areas, you really see that, from my beliefs, there is a collective consciousness. We all are connected, and the way the I believe the vibrations are changing, they are increasing. We're going to see more and more of a collective mindset of what Carl Jung talked about.
Yes, this is really, really wonderful. And also in high achieving environments, especially leadership and academia, what patterns pull people away from consciousness and into disconnection from themselves?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times when people feel disconnected from other people and disconnected from themselves, when we look at what becomes the root of that, what is, and we look at kind of those, there's emotions of fear, right? There may be emotions of guilt. There may be emotions of all the things that are there when you don't necessarily know yourself, right? So we look at where that a lot of that energy lives, and a lot of that energy lives around, for those who may or may not be familiar, if you're familiar with the chakras and their energy centers, fear and a lot of those emotions live at the red ray energy center. So for people who are kind of experiencing experiencing that, those are the folks that essentially want to be able to raise their vibrations to orange, to yellow, to green, and so forth, where they're not kind of living in a state of fear and burnout and so forth. So if you are feeling that way, the first thing kind of to do is to be able to kind of ground yourself. And there's multiple ways that you can be able to do that. One being just more visually to be able to just connect to the earth and just those feelings and emotions of what you want to get rid of, um, giving that to the earth because we know that this is a cyclical environment to where even the plants they give out carbon dioxide, which they give out they eat carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, which is their waste, but it's our
Mm.
energy source. So we know that we're able to have this exchange mechanism. So if you are feeling those feelings of burnout, feelings of loneliness, then that's the opportunity to connect to the earth because and then exchange that energy. Secondly, I would be able to say if you are feeling burnt out, that's the time if you're not actually trying the meditation or learning about meditation or learning about contemplation, um, or even mantras. That may be a wake up call and maybe a signal that you may want to maybe try like a conscious or spiritual based practice. And again, that could be something that seems something that resonates with you, whether it is I recommend everybody meditates. I don't really believe there is a wrong way to meditate. I believe you become more effective with time. But as you start, there's no wrong way to do it because the thing that is important, the most important, I believe, about meditation is intention, right?
Mm.
So, and the last thing I would be able to say that if you are again feeling burnt out and things like that, one of the things that I have always, I'm not gonna say always done, but have done within the last 5 years that has really helped me in the environments, even when I had people that I supervised and I was a vice president at the university. What I would do is I would actually send vibrational energy, love and light to the actual physical environment that I was working in. I would send it to the people who were working in that environment. Throughout the day when I had meetings, I would send positive energy to the people I would be meeting with throughout that day. And you find when you are doing things like that, when you are positively sending energy to folks, you may not believe are consciously receiving it, but they're unconsciously receiving it, which will then flow into the conscious. But everything is energy, and that intention and that energy, it is going somewhere, and it's going to have an impact on that environment and the folks that are involved. So even if you are feeling burnt out, you're feeling that way, that then becomes a way to be able to raise your vibrations, maybe take on a spiritual or conscious based practice, but also to start maybe sending positive energy, love, and light to those sources of burnout that you feel are the ones that is causing it.
Yes. I think it sounds like the root isn't pressure itself, but the quiet erosion of trust in our own internal signals. And also, when that disconnection takes hold, how does it tend to show up in day to day, like emotionally, physiologically, even physically?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a great question. So, um, it those are things that when we are not taking care of them, I would say if you look at it like almost like weeds, right? If you don't actually take care of weeds in your yard, weeds are going to grow. And not only are they gonna grow, but they're gonna start to grow and show up places where you really don't want them. And so I think the first thing that happens if it's something that's not necessarily rectified, it starts to show up in the way you communicate with people. Um, and people may not want to be around a person that is showing up, may not be the most positive, may be negative. It will show up in your it will impact your ability to be creative, right? Because even if you have the energy of a huge creative energy, there's going to be some dampening to that energy by way of uh the burnout, the negativity, and so forth. And then just as with anything that grows, I personally believe that thoughts are energies and thoughts will become things. I have dealt with that personally when I talked about my health issue when I did a 24-day water fast. I can tell you from the things that happened to me when I was a child, it went on and went on in my body to have the health issue that I had when I was in my like 36, 37 years old. So thoughts do become things. So there has to be a correction to that. So knowing that thoughts become things, knowing that if it's not rectified, it will show up in your body. It will show up in those spaces where you don't want it. And when you look at some of the causes, what I personally believe, one of the biggest causes of anger that is not rectified, anger that grows and grows and grows and manifests, I believe it can manifest itself into cancer and other types of things. So I think it do becomes important to not only be able to balance this energy, to be able to release it, understand the lesson behind it, but it will impact not only your work, your creativity, maybe your family, your relationships, but then it can manifest itself in your body to be able to have health outcomes that you may not necessarily want.
Yeah. Yes. That mind body loop you were describing really reinforced the idea that consciousness is not abstract, it's operational. And also, growth is not linear. So, when people begin expanding consciousness and then hit setbacks, self doubt, maybe manipulation, or old survival patterns, what helps them stay anchored without becoming rigid?
Oh yeah, great question. So I think that the first thing that is of most importance that we recognize in our journey of growth is grace. We have to give ourselves grace. We have to realize that we are going to sometimes have setbacks. And if we incorporate that framework in the beginning, those setbacks don't necessarily feel like failures, but just parts of the process. So I think it's important from the onset for us to realize that there is going to be those times where we may feel that we are not as consistent, that we maybe miss the day, that we don't necessarily feel like it, and all of those things are regular, they're normal. And when you look at it, that there are a lot of things like I'll give you an example. One of the things when you really look at that I studied, it was my astrological birth chart. And in regards to your astrological birth chart, as you probably know, nobody has the same astrological birth chart, even if it's twins. Um, the 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 universe has shifted even a second or 2 seconds apart. So nobody has the same birth chart. When you look at the birth chart, there are, because of the arrangement of planets at that time, certain times of the year, certain times of the day, certain times of the week, where you may feel more and more connected, more and more at peace versus other times. So I was able to kind of understand why certain times of the week, my meditations didn't necessarily feel as well. But I realized that wasn't necessarily based on anything that I was doing wrong or one of my failures. It was just something that there were things astrologically happening that I just wasn't aware of that I just had to make sure I accounted for in my meditation. So there are a lot of different, not only moving pieces, but when you go on a path of consciousness and you allow yourself to have grace and not blame, it allows a path to be able to expand consciousness, but to expand understanding, understanding of the universe, understanding of metaphysics, understanding of things that'll come to you that will just make sense, that will help be able to subside maybe those feelings of failure. So in the onset, I think it's important that even with ourselves and with other people, we lead with grace in our own spiritual and conscious journeys.
Yeah, I think like I feel that resilience become less about control and more about clarity, knowing when to open and when to protect. And this is truly a wonderful conversation with you. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
Yes, yes, I'll answer that real quick. But also, you mentioned something about resilience, and I want to say something about that before, if it's okay,
Yeah.
before I go into the way people can connect with me. But one of the things that I did prior to doing ConsciRise, with my measuring work was um I sold something called the growth and resiliency measure, and it was a measurement that students would take basically in fifth grade through um, through their seniors in high school to be able to understand what their kind of resilience level is. And when you look at kind of resilience versus grit, right? Because a lot of people talk about grit, and one of the things that you find with when it comes to resilience is about not only continuing on progression, but there's self-actualization that happens within the process of resilience. Because during that process of self-actualization, that then allows one to be able to create a new path. Because resilience is also about not only keep going, but trying new and creative things. But you need resilience to do that. And the underlying part of that is a person being able to know themselves by going through a process of self actualization. So I wanted to just say that a part of one being resilient and them being able to know themselves more. And then that then kind of fuels that path of being able to have more creative ideas or to continue more with anything that somebody may be experiencing. So the way somebody can connect with me, um, I'm on all the social media channels. J Locust Jr. JLOCUSTJR. That's on Instagram. That's on TikTok. Dr. Jonathan Locust Jr. on Instagram. And then most importantly, you can join our community. You can find us at ConsciRise.com, ConsciRise.com. We have a free community space. And we have not only uh, free events, free courses, and things that you can go through, but for those who may want a more structured path, we even have some memberships where you can be a part of our community fasting experience. So we have a community fast where we fast 1 to 3 days within community at the end of every month. Um, where you can get that on a regular basis, as well as sound therapy and all these different cool things in a more structured manner. So we have things for someone who wants to just join the community for free. You don't have to pay anything. Or for people who want a more structured path, we have practitioners and pathways for those folks as well.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and know more from you because you're truly, truly an amazing person. And thank you for sharing your insights and your knowledge with us. And to all my listeners, there is a reflection question for you. For anyone who is listening and who feels disconnected from themselves right now, what might change if you trusted that your exhaustion isn't weakness but information? And remember, true resilience emerges when consciousness, science, and self trust work together, turning disruption into a pathway for deeper strength. And thank you for joining us with Mind Over Matter. If today's conversation resonated, then take a moment to notice what your own mind and body have been trying to tell you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and remember resilience begins within. Thank you.